Thank you for joining me. I'm looking forward to checking out your comments as we get towards the end. Anything you'd like to say, anything you'd like to add, I'm pleased to hear it. And this week, you'll be pleased to hear I am cold-free, so there should be no sniffles, fingers crossed. And I'll be reading from my Kindle, because it was a bit difficult last time, and this seems to be a much better method. I hope you'll enjoy. Slippers and Chains, Part 2. Dan says, "Don't be so 50s. "Darling, where are you?" Dan glared at the phone, imagining his mother's face in its place. "London Road." "How far?" "Queen's Road." Soft tutting came through the hands-free receiver. "That's still miles away. Why didn't you leave sooner?" "You're here then, I suppose." "Your father and I have been waiting for 5 minutes already. You really should have left sooner. His leg's giving him trouble." Before he could stop himself, Dan said, "I told you what to do about that, didn't I?" "Don't take that tone with me." "Fine," he said in his most saccharine tones. "But you could take a bus if you don't want to wait. Cheaper than a cab. The stops are right outside the station." "We have too many things. And your father won't make it. Just hurry along and pick us up, darling, there's a dear." He hung up and jumped when the mobile immediately began to ring. "What?" he snapped. "Sorry, mate, I just wanted to know where the spare key was." Some of the stiffness eased out of Dan's shoulders. "Pete, thank God. You're at the house?" "Yes, but I can't see the key." "It's on the rose bush, about halfway down, hanging on a thorn." Several tense seconds passed. Dan heard his friend wrestling with the bush and the sharp yelp which meant he'd probably found the other thorns. "Got it," he said at last. "Okay, Pete." Dan hesitated. "When you get in there, be sensitive, okay?" "What do you mean?" He licked his lips. "Karen's likely to be really pissed, so just try not to make it worse." A long pause followed. "What exactly am I about to walk into?" The words to explain it just wouldn't come. "I wouldn't have called you if it wasn't desperate. Tell her that, will you?" "What have you done?" "I'll speak to you later." Heart thudding, Dan hung up. He put the phone on silent and tried to concentrate on the road ahead. Rising in his mind, he saw Karen kneeling on the floor of the cage and her bewildered expression as Pete sauntered into the room. Bewilderment, which quickly changed into fury and embarrassment. "Sod it," he snarled. 40 minutes and 6 missed calls later, Dan rolled into the station car park and cringed at the tiny silver-haired woman waving an equally tiny hanky in his direction. Her dress, reminiscent of some garish 70s curtain, billowed in the breeze and displayed an unwelcome length of leg encased in sheer, gleaming nylon. "Darling," she cried, "I thought you'd never get here." "I've not been that long. We had to eat at that ghastly little sandwich place, the green one." "Subway? What's wrong with that?" "All that bread and greasy microwaved meat. Ugh, terrible. I had to ask your father to find us a spot in the Costa instead. At least they have coffee." "Hi, Dad." Dan grinned at his father. The older man, with a lion-like sweep of white hair and lively brown eyes, leaned heavily against the bollard. "Hey, son." "Traffic?" "The worst. I had to take the back streets just to get here at all." "You're just in time," he said. "I don't think I could have managed to fight off another gawking group of tourists, or keep Maxine away from them." Dan felt a little wriggle of pride in his chest. "You did good, Dad." Maxine looked less pleased. "You have no right to shoo away my fans, Julian. There's no harm in signing an autograph or two, is there?" "I like to drink my coffee in peace, thanks." "You're such a stick in the mud." "And you can't stand not being the centre of attention." As the pair began their customary bickering, Dan tuned it out and popped the boot on his car. Into it, he stuck 2 holdalls and 3 large hat boxes. "You carried all this on the train?" "We had one of those trolley things. Very easy to push." Julian limped around the car towards the back seat. How would you know? Well, I'm glad you had help. Dan threw himself into the conversation before his mother could. He smiled and took her hand, leading her to the front passenger side and holding the door open. See that, Julian? I raised him right. Good lad. She pressed a dry, heavily perfumed kiss against his face and folded herself into the car. Dan took a deep breath. He counted to 10, and only then did he climb into the driver's side. It all started again the moment he turned on the engine. You should let me buy you a new car, darling. Maxine shoved one glossy fingernail into the hole in the dashboard. This thing is falling to bits. I like it. It's not safe. Let me get you a nice Lexus or one of those sporty things my agent used to drive. You know the ones, a BMW. I don't want a new car. You sure? It's no trouble. I know money's tight, what with that girl leeching it all out of your pockets. I like to help when I can. Leeching? What are you talking about? Maxine patted her hair. It was already perfect, but she made a great show of curling it behind her ears before she spoke again. Katrina, or whatever it is. Karen. Her. She's not working? She's a student. I thought you said she was your age. Dan gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles grew pale. She is. She's doing a PhD. That's a fancy way of saying she's living off the state, darling. Steady, Maxine. Clearly the girl has some brains if she's doing something like that. Julian spoke from the back seat. He even leaned forward to say more until he got a lazy hand waved in his face for his trouble. These people who stay in education until they're nearly 30 are just lazy. They'd rather spend their time lolling around and drifting and smoking that horrible green stuff instead of working and contributing like everyone else. Like you. I'm retired, darling. You haven't worked since you were 40. Maxine turned to face him. Her eyes, surrounded by their delicate makeup, narrowed to thin slits. I didn't need to. I've done my share. And I still contribute. I don't even draw my pension. Aren't you the saint? Dan wrenched the wheel a little harder than necessary, taking a left bend at a sharp angle. So what brings you all the way here? A relieved sigh came from the back seat. Hadn't we better get to your house first? I don't like to air my affairs out in the street. Dan cast a significant glance around the interior of the car. I think it's pretty private in here, Mum. I'd rather wait, thank you. I'll tell you over dinner. Oh, you're staying then? She tutted at him. Don't say it like that. You almost sound as if your little lady friend hasn't prepared something for us. She hasn't. Oh. That single syllable lit a flame in Dan's belly. He counted to 10 again, this time in his head. You didn't give us very much warning, Mum. How are we supposed to cook something with less than an hour's notice? A resourceful woman always finds a way. Dan grunted. It's not up to her anyway. Tonight's my night to cook. You? Maxine looked scandalised. That's hardly proper, is it? Don't be so 50s. Maxine humped. It's not 50s, Daniel. It's proper. You're stuck in a time warp, woman. It's not like that. Dan here has got himself a modern woman. Oh yes, Julian, a modern woman. Maxine chewed the words as though they had a bad taste. With a PhD. A PhD, she added, as though unsure what the letters even meant. Of all the things. As he returned his attention to the road, Dan caught a glimpse of his mobile from the corner of his eye, and the intermittent flashing of Pete mobile calling, flashing on the screen. Thanks very much, everyone. That was part 2 of Slippers and Chains. Dan says, don't be so 50s. I hope you enjoyed it. As ever, I would be pleased to hear any and all comments you have. I love back and forth dialogue with you. It's one of the reasons why I keep this vlog going. Hopefully, all being well, next week's episode shall be up same time. Until then, ta-ta!